All right, let's go ahead and get started. The purpose of today's go-to training is to talk to you about this last assignment you're going to have to do, assignment 4. I want to go through the guidelines on it because I want to make sure that everybody gets the chance to do as best as they can on it. First and foremost, what you've done so far is that you've created a company in QuickBooks. In the second week, you recorded a bunch of transactions. In week 3, you created a budget. And now in week 4, you're going to pull it all together and you're going to do a report based on your financial statements for your company. And there's certain things that need to be in there. So for instance, if we look at the assignment, you got the continuation of the storyline. It tells you that your presentation is going to be recorded. So it needs to be a minimum of 5 minutes. Try not to exceed 10, but if you go over a little bit, that's all right. The things that you're going to talk about are the financial condition of the company. And to do so, you need to talk about the balance sheet, the profit and loss statement, budget versus actual, and the statement of cash flows. Okay, now we're going to talk about the statement of cash flows in class on Wednesday, but you can still read about it in your assigned text for this week. So for the balance sheet, what you need to do is to go through and talk about the different accounts that are on the balance sheet. You need to identify some things that are positive on it. Like for an example, the company has tons of cash, and you need to identify some things that potentially are negative. Okay, you'll have to figure those out. You also have some ratios that you can calculate, and you should calculate them and include them in your presentation. In fact, I'll be sending out this afternoon an additional worksheet for you, and it has some things that it's asking for you to do on there. You should incorporate these items into your presentation for assignment 4. On your profit and loss statement, you're going to have the budget and you're going to have the actual numbers from assignment 2. And what you're being asked to do is for each budget variance, you're being asked to provide an explanation as to why that variance took place. So in other words, if your event revenue from assignment 2 is $11,400 and your budget is $12,000, then what that means is that you came up short on your performance, and you should provide an explanation as to why. Maybe it's something as simple as the last event of the month got rained out or something along that line. In any event, you have 7 expense accounts and 1 revenue account. So I expect to see 8 explanations provided in the presentation. You also have a statement of cash flow. Okay, statement of cash flow shows cash coming into the business and cash going out of the business. It starts with net income. From assignment 2, your net income was $4,833 and change. That's the point of beginning on it. Okay, then it's going to take you through 3 sections. One's going to be called operating activities, and that's going to be adding and subtracting some items to net income based on the operation of the company. The second section on it is called investing activities, and that's going to be adding and subtracting some items, some dollars based on whether or not you purchased any fixed assets. And then finally, in the financing section, you're going to have 2 items, and that's going to be money that comes into the business or goes out of the business because of loans or stock. You'll need to talk about some of those items in your presentation. You just turned in a Word document with 10 internal controls. What you were supposed to do was to name the control, explain how it works, and then explain how you would know it's actually being followed. So you're being asked for this presentation to pick 5 of them and put them in your keynote or PowerPoint. The final thing you're being asked to do is provide a very short recap of any key terms you learned or concepts over the 4 weeks. And the only way you can lose points on that is if you don't include it. So if you include it, then it's totally subjective on your part. So there's no way you can lose any points. All right, so if for some reason you had trouble with assignment 2 and you no longer feel that you have the time to fix any errors that were in assignment 2, I've attached on the bottom of this assignment a balance sheet, a profit and loss standard report, and a statement of cash flows. And you can always use these. They're in Excel format, so feel free to utilize these in your presentation if you so desire. If you're going to use the profit and loss standard that's here, when you open it up, you're going to see it has the actual numbers from assignment 2, but there's no column for budget. So if you're going to use this, you're going to have to go ahead and recreate your budget by typing in budget in a column and then adding numbers next to each of these over here. Okay, but if you have good numbers from assignment 2, I would use QuickBooks and don't even worry about using these attachments. Finally, you have your rubric on the bottom. So you can make this into a voiceover on a Keynote or a PowerPoint. You can convert it into a movie file if you so desire. What I would make a point of doing is if you're going to use Keynote or PowerPoint, I think I would put presenter notes on the slides, because more often than not what happens is when the assignment gets turned in and I go to look at it on that Monday after the month ends, oftentimes I'll find some of the submissions have no audio, okay, or the audio doesn't work. Well, at that point, you're kind of out of luck. So I would go ahead and put some presenter notes on the slides. So worst case scenario, I could always read what you wanted to talk about. If you don't do that and the audio doesn't work and you show me a balance sheet, I have zero idea what you want to say about it. The majority of your presentation should be on the financial statements. That should be 3/4 of your time you're presenting should be on those 3 financial statements. Only 1/4 of your time should be spent on the internal controls and the recap. All right. Oftentimes things will be submitted that's the other way around, where the student will get through the financial statements in like 30 seconds and then spend the next 5 minutes talking about internal controls. If you do that, you're not going to get a very good grade. Tips on creating slides. Please make sure you spell check and grammar check your slides. There's nothing worse than finding a misspelled word on a slide. It basically takes away from whatever you're talking about. And you should be in the habit of doing this anyway. Make sure if you do any research that you give a reference slide so you can cite your references. Make sure that the graphics you're using or the copy of the financial statements, if that's what you're going to put in your slides, make sure it's big enough that you can actually read the numbers. If you're going to use ratios, then you need to make sure that you explain those ratios in the presentation. What I think I would do if it was me, I would turn around and complete my presentation. I would then find a roommate or a friend who has not taken business accounting. I would ask them to watch the presentation and see if it makes sense to them. If it does, then you probably got a home run. If they come away from it just kind of shaking their head like they have no idea what you're talking about, you need to go back and redo it. All right, so that's kind of where you're at. This assignment has a weight of 20% for the campus class. So it could be the deal breaker between, passing or not passing. So you want to make sure that you do the best work you can possibly do. Okay, I will be available this afternoon. I will be available tomorrow. And then for the campus class, we have class on Wednesday. And let's see what questions we have here. Tony, yes, you can. Just as long as I'm able to open it, we're good. What I would recommend you do is if you're going to use something other than Keynote or PowerPoint, you might want to put together a real short little presentation and send it to me and make sure I can actually open it. But otherwise, yes, that's fine. It also, if for some reason you can't upload it to the platform and you put it on YouTube, then make sure you give me a link that I can get to the presentation. Do we have any other questions regarding what you need to do for this assignment? Okay. Sounds like nobody has any questions. All right. Well, I will be available for sure a lot between now and Sunday. So if you do have questions, then please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. All right. That's all I got. So thank you for attending.